November 23rd, 1996. The Dell, Southampton. A Premier League football match is underway, and a substitute is warming up on the touchline. He's wearing the number 15 shirt. He's about to come on and play alongside Premier League professionals, men who trained every single day of their lives for this moment. There's just one problem. He has never played professional football in his life. He's not a Senegalese international. He's not a former PSG player. He's not even really Ali Dia. Not the Ali Dia the manager thinks he signed. Within an hour, he will be substituted off for being, and this is a direct quote from someone on the pitch that day, not fit to play football, basically. This is the story of the greatest hoax in the history of the Premier League. This is the story of Ali Dia. To understand how this happened, you need to understand two things: the state of football in the mid-1990s and the ego of one of its biggest managers. It's 1996. The Premier League is only a few years old. There's no Y-Scout, no YouTube scouting reels, no agents' databases with verified statistics, no quick way to check if a player actually played where he claimed. If a phone call came in from a trusted voice vouching for a player, that phone call carried real weight. And Southampton, in November in 1996, were desperate. They were struggling near the bottom of the table under manager Graham Souness, a legendary player in his own right, a hard man of Liverpool's glory years, now trying to keep a small club afloat in the Premier League. Injuries were piling up. Southampton's talisman, Matt Le Tissier, was one of the most gifted players of his generation, but the squad around him was thin. Souness needed options, and that's exactly the kind of moment a con artist waits for. One day, Graham Souness picked up his phone. On the other end was a voice claiming to be George Weah. Now, stop and think about who George Weah was in 1996. He wasn't just a good player, he was, at that exact moment, the reigning FIFA World Player of the Year and Ballon d'Or winner, the best footballer on the planet, a Liberian icon who would later become the president of his country. If George Weah calls you personally about a player, you listen. The voice on the phone told Souness he had a cousin, a Senegalese international named Ali Dia, capped for the national team, had played for Paris Saint-Germain, currently a free agent, and available right now to help Southampton in their hour of need. Souness didn't verify this. He didn't call the Senegalese Football Federation. He didn't call PSG. He simply believed the voice on the other end of the line was George Weah, arguably the most trustworthy character reference imaginable in world football at the time. Here's the twist that makes this story almost too perfect. It wasn't George Weah. It was Ali Dia himself, or possibly an associate of his, pretending to be George Weah on the phone vouching for Ali Dia. Souness signed him on a 1-month contract. So who was the real Ali Dia? He was a Senegalese-born player, yes. That part wasn't entirely fabricated, but instead of Paris Saint-Germain and full international caps, his actual footballing background was a patchwork of amateur and lower league spells that never came close to the top level. Reports from the time trace him through non-league English football, including a stint with a club called Blyth Spartans, as well as brief attempts to break into professional football in France that never stuck. In other words, a fringe, journeyman non-league player had just talked his way through an outright fabricated phone call onto the bench of a Premier League football club. And Southampton didn't just sign him. They put him on the substitutes bench for a real Premier League match against Leeds United. November 23rd, 1996. Leeds United at home, at the Dell. Southampton's greatest ever player, Matt Le Tissier, picks up an injury during the match. Souness needs a substitute, and sitting there in the number 15 shirt is Ali Dia. He sends him on. What happens next has become part of football folklore. Multiple players and observers who were present that day have described Dia's brief cameo the same way. A player who looked completely out of his depth, not having a bad game the way a professional sometimes does, but someone who visibly did not have the fitness, the touch, or the tactical understanding of the professional game around him. Matt Le Tissier himself later said Dia ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice, a phrase that stuck to this story forever. He wasn't slow because of nerves. He looked like a man who had genuinely never trained at this level in his life. Souness watched from the touchline in what can only be described as mounting horror. His new Senegalese international, the one vouched for personally by the best player on the planet, was struggling to even control the ball. After a little over 50 minutes on the pitch, Souness pulled him off, substituted for being, in the words later used by people involved, simply not up to the level of a professional football match. Southampton lost the game 2-0. Almost immediately, questions started swirling. Journalists tried to trace Ali Dia's career, the Paris Saint-Germain connection, the Senegal caps, and found nothing. No record, no confirmation, nothing but a trail of amateur football and a very convincing phone call. Southampton terminated his 1-month contract early, cutting their losses before it went any further. Ali Dia disappeared from professional football almost as quickly as he'd appeared in it. There was no legal battle, no grand confession, no dramatic unmasking on television. He simply vanished from the headlines, and the story calcified into legend, repeated in greatest football hoaxes lists for decades afterward. To this day, nobody has ever fully confirmed exactly who made that phone call pretending to be George Weah. The real George Weah, for his part, has denied any connection to it. Whether it was Dia himself doing an impression or an accomplice remains one of the enduring mysteries of the story. It's easy to laugh at this story, and it is genuinely funny. A non-league player conning his way onto a Premier League pitch with nothing but confidence and a fake phone call is one of the great "how did this actually happen" moments in sports history. But there's something else buried in this story too. It's a story about trust and about how football, even at the highest level, still ran on relationships and reputations rather than hard data. Right at the exact historical moment before, that started to change forever. A few years later, this kind of con becomes almost impossible. Clubs build scouting departments, player databases go digital, agents get regulated, video footage of every match at every level becomes searchable. Ali Dia's hoax worked because it happened at the last possible moment in football history when it could work. And there's something almost admirable, in a strange way, about the sheer audacity of it. Whatever else you say about Ali Dia, he had the nerve to walk out onto a Premier League pitch in front of thousands of people, with television cameras rolling, knowing full well he had no business being there. And he did it anyway. Graham Souness went on to have a long, respected managerial career, and to his credit, he's spoken about this story himself over the years with a good sense of humor about it. It's become one of those tales that follows a manager around forever. As for Ali Dia, his 53 minutes on a Premier League pitch remain the single most talked about moment of his footballing life. Not because of what he did on the ball, but because of how, for one afternoon, he made everyone in football believe he belonged there. If you enjoyed this story, there are dozens more like it buried in football history, hoaxes, cons, and moments stranger than fiction. Subscribe and I'll bring you the next one.